It's been a long road from Mortlake for Paul Levy.
It's been monstrous. I blanked out a lot of my childhood, never spoke about it, the good or the bad, you know. That period from when the abuse first started till later on in life.
Paul Levy has a compelling reason to blank it all out. His life began to unravel at age 12 when the Levy family met priest Gerald Francis Ridsdale. When Paul's parents split up, Father Jerry became a seemingly indispensable support to the boy's Catholic mother, Beverly.
Ridsdale befriending me and things like that, my parents were so thankful for him for doing that.
Unbeknownst to the Levys, Ridsdale was to become one of Australia's worst serial pedophiles, and knowledge of Ridsdale's offending, including by Australia's most senior Catholic, Cardinal Pell, is at the heart of today's release by the Child Abuse Royal Commission. Back in 1982, when Paul Levy began truanting at school, Ridsdale offered to Levy's father to take the 14-year-old off his mother's hands for a while.
If anyone else said, can we take your son away, or can your son come and live with us in the country, you know, you really, my parents would question that. But being the Catholics that they were, it was just, yeah, we trust them and we trust the church and we trust the priests, and yeah, there it goes.
Paul Levy was sent to live with Ridsdale at Easter 1982 in the tiny town of Mortlake in Victoria's Western District. Ridsdale had a spare room, ostensibly for Paul to sleep in.
I very rarely stayed in that room. He had a mattress on the floor, and his bedroom is where I used to sleep most of the time.
Paul was subjected to abuse almost every day from April to October.
Everybody knew I was at the presbytery. We had other visiting priests come to the presbytery who knew I was there. The whole town of Mortlake knew I was at the presbytery. Doctors, teachers.
Paul Levy's mother, Beverly, began to feel uneasy and begged the Bishop, Ronald Mulcairns, to get her son out of the presbytery. He said there was nothing he could do. It was only when she threatened to go to the police that Paul Levy was removed from Gerald Ridsdale's clutches. When you see that picture of yourself and Gerald Ridsdale in the presbytery at Mortlake, what do you think?
It just, it rips me apart, you know.
Paul Levy's abuse never had to happen. Bishop Mulcairns had known for years that Gerald Ridsdale was abusing children. From 1976, 6 years before Levy was sent to live with Ridsdale, so too did the Bishop's priestly consultors, counsel assisting the Royal Commission has found today. George Pell first attended a consultors meeting a year later. By 1982, counsel assisting submitted that he had learned of Ridsdale's offending from the rest of the group.
It was the common understanding of the meeting that complaints that Ridsdale had sexually abused children was the reason it had become necessary to move him. There is no reason that Bishop Mulcairns would have been dishonest when he explained to the meeting why it had become necessary to move Ridsdale. The conduct of any consultor who agreed to move Ridsdale, or indeed any priest with knowledge of allegations of child sexual abuse made against them, is unacceptable.
Yeah, I certainly believe he must have known.
George Pell's final submission provides a robust rebuttal.
The Royal Commission's case study into the Ballarat Diocese and Cardinal Pell's appearance before the Royal Commission has received extraordinary publicity. That process has not produced a single witness nor a single document which evidences that any person, lay or religious, provided information to Father Pell which would have indicated that Ridsdale was abusing children.
Cardinal Pell's legal team says, quote, there is not a scintilla of evidence that he was told of Gerald Ridsdale's offending during his time as a consultor of the Ballarat Diocese. But counsel assisting's submission rejects that. It concludes that his time as a consultor wasn't the only one where Cardinal Pell had knowledge of complaints against paedophile clergy. That knowledge dates back to 1974. The alleged incident in 1974 involved survivor Tim Green, who gave evidence to the Royal Commission that he approached George Pell at Ballarat's Eureka Pool and told him that Christian brother Edward Dowland was touching little boys.
Father Pell said, "Don't be so ridiculous," and walked out.
George Pell says he cannot recall the conversation, but counsel assisting submitted that Tim Green was an honest and credible witness, and the evidence supported Mr Green's account, not the Cardinal's.
The evidence establishes that between 1973 and 1975, Father Pell was told by at least one student and one or two priests about Dowland's infractions of a sexual nature with minors.
I feel extremely vindicated that the battle we have had over the last 30 years has been worthwhile.
Graham Sleeman tried to blow the whistle on a cruel paedophile priest, Peter Searson, in 1985. Sleeman was the principal of Holy Family Primary in Doveton in outer Melbourne when student Julie Stewart came running, wailing from the confessional where Father Searson had abused her. Sleeman's attempts to call out the abuse fell on deaf ears, and Searson remained at Holy Family for 12 years while Sleeman lost his job. George Pell was auxiliary bishop for the region, but he says he was deceived about Searson's offending.
Council, this was an extraordinary world, a world of crimes and cover-ups.
But in 1989, a delegation of Doveton parents went to see Bishop Pell with a list of grievances about Father Searson. Lawyers for the Commission submitted that Cardinal Pell and other senior clerics knew enough about Searson's aberrant behaviour.
The matters known to Cardinal Pell on his own evidence were sufficient that he ought reasonably to have concluded that more serious action needed to be taken in relation to Searson. Cardinal Pell and other senior archdiocesan officials failed to exercise proper care for the children of Doveton.
Cardinal Pell's lawyers argue that he had nowhere near the level of knowledge that, for instance, the police had about Searson.
George Pell may now be a cardinal of the Catholic Church, and he accepts by virtue of that position that he is subjected to greater scrutiny than others. But that does not mean that his involvement in historical events should be inflated or exaggerated because of the position he now holds.
The Royal Commission will decide next year whether it accepts the submissions of its own legal team. It's considered likely the Commission will make some adverse findings against the Cardinal. It could also privately recommend police press charges against George Pell.